Modifications to the gearbox are a 5% higher ratio top gear, which I fitted, and also I modified the main shaft circlip at the clutch end of the main shaft. This was one of the ones that this bike was one of the ones that BMW made without a output shaft bearing circlip. So anyway, there's more of that information on my gearbox rebuild videos. That's the only mods that I've done to the gearbox. The drive shaft has a rebuildable drive shaft in it. That again came from Motorworks, and that is you can lubricate the universal joints, and if the universal joints wear out you can replace them, unlike in both circumstances the original OEM ones. A little bit fiddly to fit to get the drive shaft down through the aperture in the paralever, but it's not too bad. That's the only modifications to the train. So now we're moving on to the engine. Right, so the cylinder heads are dual plugged. You can see there's my lower plug, there's my upper plug. I did this modification years ago, and it was a good modification. Probably only worth doing though if you are likely to do a high mileage on the bike, because it's quite an expensive thing to do. But it certainly makes the engine run much better on poor quality fuel. So if you're a traveller with a 1000cc engine, then that is worth doing. There's a moderate increase in compression ratio, but not much. The other thing I've done is on the inlet valve guides, I have installed valve stem seals, and that is another very good modification. I'm very pleased with the way that turned out. Since fitting those, I've had the best oil consumption figures ever. I hardly use any oil at all since fitting those, and as I say, I bought the bike with 14,000 miles on the clock, and it's now got well over 400,000 miles on the clock, and in all that time the best oil consumption I've had is since I fitted the valve stem oil seals. There's also a Sieben Rock camshaft fitted. I did that just really out on a whim, but it did make improvements. The engine does breathe a lot better, and it's a lot more torquey than with the standard camshaft, so I fitted that. The exhaust system, I removed the original intermediate silencer, which is under the gearbox, and fitted this Y-pipe. And that there's two types of Y-pipe available. Try to get, if you're going to do it, it's better to have the one where the two pipes from each cylinder join and as a, how can I say it, where they flow into each other more gently. With the Kahan one, which is what I had on there originally, the joint is quite abrupt, and the gas flowing down one branch of the pipe conflicts with the gas exiting from the other. So I don't recommend the K-Hine one. But what I do recommend from K-Hine is the silencer. I fitted a K-Hine silencer, or K-Han, I don't know how you pronounce it, silencer when the baffles rotted in my original silencer, the original BMW silencer, and I fitted a K-Han replacement, which is, to the uninitiated, appears from the outside to be exactly the same, but it's lasted really well. It did split. K-Han say that their exhaust systems come with a 10-year guarantee, and when the 10 years were almost up but not quite, the silencer developed a split, and they honoured the guarantee and repaired and carried out the repair for nothing. So I'm very happy with that, and it's been another, since then I've had this exhaust system on probably maybe 15 or 20 years, this K-Hand silencer, so it's done very well. So that's all the engine mods. Now moving on to the electrics. So with the electrics, there's Emerald Isle 400 watt generator fitted, which is much better both in terms of reliability, longevity and output than the original Bosch, and I'm very pleased with that. It's 400 watt output, which is over 100 watts more, I believe, than the original BMW one. I converted the ignition system to points operation. A lot of people may think that's a strange thing to do, but the reason I did it is because points operated systems are very simple, and I can repair it in the field should it be necessary. It hasn't ever been necessary, or apart from once when a condenser went and I had to replace that. But other than that, it's been absolutely bulletproof. Compared with my experience of the original Bosch systems, where the Hall effect trigger, which replaces the points, can let you down without any warning, and it's much easier for me to carry a spare set of points and a condenser when I'm travelling than a complete trigger system for the original Bosch. That's what I like to have. I know there are others available. I've heard very good reports about the wedge tail system, which has appeared recently, but for me, I'm going to stick with points because I want the simplicity of being able to carry out a repair in the field. Linked to that is a Dyna electronic ignition module, which is located up here, and that just takes the load off the points. So the thing about this though is that if it did fail, I could just swap two wires around and I'll be back to working on normal points operation. So this Dyna ignition module just supports the points operator system, so I have that. And then I've got twin tower Dyna ignition coils for the dual output or the dual plugged heads. So I'm using Dyna coils on there, and I'm using copper cord HT leads and 5 kilo ohm spark plug caps, NGK 5 kilo ohm spark plug caps. Then inside there's a Nissan starter motor, again available from Motorworks. That replaced the Vallejo starter with the magnet, when the magnets dropped off, which is a common fault with the Vallejo starter motors that were put on the last lot of BMWs. So that Nissan starter, again, absolutely bulletproof, just like the Emerald Isle alternator kit. Highly recommend both those units. Round the front, I'm using a Philips Vision Plus headlamp bulb. Best headlamp bulb, halogen headlamp bulb I found. Read reports on it done by the BMW Club technical officer years ago, a guy called Mike, who did a really good report on it, and so I went on that recommendation and I've never looked back. And then lastly, electrical modifications, I've just got a little USB port there fitted there, which I charge my phone and anything else I might happen to have in my tank bag that needs charging. That came from Amazon. And that really is it. I've got a phone mount there, but that's all my modifications now. I think I've covered it. If you've got any modifications you've done to your BMW Airheads that you think are really great, then please let me know. I'm always open to suggestions for anything that might improve my ride. Okay, thanks for that. I'll be posting up another video soon. Another modification I did carry out several years ago was to fit Mikuni carbs. I've put a pair of Mikuni round slide carburetors on, which being slightly shorter in length meant that this connection to the air filter required modification, and I had to turn up a spacer so that this would reach the spacer on the carbs. Anyway, it worked all right, but I didn't really get any advantage from having over the Bings. And one disadvantage was that I found in winter I was getting icing up of the carburettor, which I got round ironically by putting some ethanol in the petrol tank. I used to put about an egg cup full of ethanol in the petrol tank every time I filled up with fuel, and that cured the icing. That was long before we had ethanol in petrol at the pump. Anyway, I changed back to the Bings because I just wasn't getting any advantage, and it was nice. It was better really to have the Bings on than mess around with the Mikunis. So that was the only modification I've done that I've reversed that I can remember. So there we are.